Hello, hello. Just getting set up here, y'all. Getting set up here. Posting to TikTok. Posting to X real quick. Mm, I'm for that, man. I'm for that. Do, 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 do. Talking Mamdani in Venezuela. Then gaming. All right, guys. So, got a few news headlines to read. Um, Welcome to the stream, everyone. So, I want to be talking about Mamdani today. That's going to be a kind of a quickie. But then I'm going to dive deep into Venezuela and what's going on over there. But so Mamdani is going to be mayor of New York City. Is that what I'm hearing? So, a lot of talk about first Muslim mayor of New York, person of color, and Democratic Socialist. But nah, man, this guy cannot be trusted. Okay, um, like we've done identity politics so many times, guys. Look what happened to Obama, first black president. Woo, monster, absolute monster, stabbed everyone in the back. Ultra capitalist, corporatist piece of garbage, and then AOC, woman of color, completely is grifting, turned out to be a complete fraud. Okay, Kamala Harris, oh, black woman, no, absolute monster, just like Trump, guys. Like identity politics does not work, guys. And like just a couple of things, I want to read to you guys. Like if you Google Mamdani Israel, right? They say he's pro-Palestinian, but um, he described Hamas's October 7th attack as a war crime. So right there is a huge red flag, y'all, because he needs to say, "Oh, Hamas was defending themselves against the Israeli occupation force." Um, so it's like, what are you doing, man? Right there, it's just not good. He's both siding it. He's both siding the game right there. You need to say Israel is a terrorist state. Hamas are the good guys. They're defending their land. They're defending themselves. Okay. During an election debate, he said he believes Israel has a right to exist. No, it does not. No, it does not. So, um, I know he's calling it is Israel needs to be reeled in. I can see why he's saying that. But he's still both siding it to me. Very red flag to me on these remarks. And guys, like every time I search Mamdani Israel, everything's behind a paywall, and that's as best as I can get as far as some quotes there. And also, guys, if you just Google Mamdani AOC, um, there's just photos. He's smiling. They're hugging each other. But it's like, nah, dude, you need to distance yourselves from this. AOC is like ultra capitalist, man. Pro war. You can't be on the campaign trail smiling and hugging and taking photo ops, man. You need to distance yourself big time. So that's really um that's really all I have to say about Mamdani, man. I mean, he's a Democrat. That's a capitalist party. Um, they're gonna. I'm sure, I'm tired of playing the lesser of evil game. It's still a shit sandwich. That's I'm sure he'll say all the right things, but we'll see, man. We'll see. But that's all I want to say about Mamdani. Just please just hold him accountable. Keep your eye on everything he's doing, and don't go back to sleep. Like, oh, okay, Cuomo's gone. Nah, man. That's what Democrats do. They say, "Oh, hey, I'm not this guy. I'm not ultra right Republican. I'm the good guy, right?" But then that's when people go to sleep and they stab you in the back. and screw you sometimes twice as hard as a Republican because you're not paying attention. So that's all I want to say about that. I hope I got my point across there. But yeah, this is not just don't. It's not a victory. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So now, guys, I want to talk about Venezuela. And Venezuela has the most oil reserves in the world, right? And for many years, the U.S. They've been trying to carve them up and take pretty much the oil on their terms, right? And I want to show you guys a conversation I had on Blue Sky. It's from a gamer friend that um he lives in Venezuela, I believe. But we kind of got into it. He starts talking about I want to end the cruel tyranny of Nicolas Maduro, and I ask him how is he a tyrant, and he replies he's a horrible person. The police are out of control, so is poverty, and he says it thanks to him. And they say he's involved in drug trafficking, and and like I reply to him, I'm like, hey man, Maduro's not the problem. The problem is economic sanctions, disinformation campaigns, covert operations by the United States, CIA, and the West. I link him a story like how the U.S. sanctions killed 40,000 Venezuelans in 1 year. Okay, and he talks about Chavez, who was before Maduro, and we start talking about Cuba, but we'll talk about Cuba another day, y'all. Um, yeah, then we start talking about Cuba, and then he wants me to, you know, how he's talking about how he's a tyrant, right? So, I just want to leave that there, but I'm gonna read some news articles, guys. Okay, so just we need to highlight how it's not all Maduro's fault. I'm not saying he's a saint. I don't live in Venezuela, but I know I live in the United States, y'all. And when what we do to other countries that don't play ball on for the mega transnational corporations, the 1%, if you don't open up your country to us, you are going to fucking pay, man. Um, Economic sanctions, blockades. We're gonna send death squads. We're gonna fund paramilitary torture death squads. We're gonna fund, we're gonna be in bed with the nastiest drug dealers and fund some ultra right wing nuts to destabilize your country, okay? And I just want to read a few headlines. Um, and I don't know about I'm anti-imperialist, right? So that's why I like talking about this stuff. If you guys are new here and you're like Game.film, who the fuck? Why am I listening to you? But no, this is my passion, y'all. So I just want to read a few headlines, guys. So this is from 2019, um, February 28, 2019. Trump's other national emergency sanctions that kill Venezuelans. The humanitarian crisis will get rapidly worse if the most recent sanctions continue. So, let me see. Do 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 do. U.S. sanctions on Venezuela are killing people and have been killing people for some time, as opposition economist Francisco Rodriguez, the leading expert on the Venezuelan economy, has pointed out. There are no estimates of the death toll from the sanctions, but given the experiments of countries in similar situations, it is likely in the thousands or tens of thousands. It is in the tens of thousands, probably more. And it will get rapidly worse if the most recent sanctions continue. How do economic sanctions kill people? In general, they do so by damaging the economy. This includes loss of employment and income for people living on the margin, and most importantly, reduce access to life saving necessities such as medicines, medical supplies, and health care. In Iraq in the 90s, for example, the number of children who died from the sanctions was in the hundreds of thousands. I believe it's half a million, and then remember Margaret Thatcher? She was on TV. The reporter or interviewer asked, "Hey, 500,000 kids died from sanctions," and then Thatcher was like, "Oh, it was worth it. You know, we just got to do it, man. It's sad, but we got to do it." So that's the kind of thinking that they do. So the article also notes that we're going to talk about the oil guys. That's the big deal. So Venezuela is dependent on oil exports for almost all of the dollars the economy needs to import necessities such as medicine and food. This means that anything that reduces oil production is primarily hitting the general population by cutting off the dollars that both the private sector and government use to import goods for people's basic needs, as well as for transport, spare parts, and most goods that the economy needs in order to function. The Trump sanctions of August 2017 imposed a financial embargo that cut Venezuela off from most borrowing. This had an enormous impact on oil production, which had already been declining. The rate of decline accelerated rapidly. Excuse me. During the year following the sanctions, it would fall by 700,000 barrels a day, about 3 times as fast as it had fallen over the previous 20 months. This post-sanction acceleration in the loss of oil production amounts to the loss of more than $6 billion. For comparison, Venezuela, when the economy was growing, spent about $2 billion per year on medicines. Total goods imports for 2018 are estimated at almost 12 billion. Let me see. At the time of these sanctions, Venezuela was already suffering from a deep recession and balance of payments, problems that necessitated a debt restructuring. To restructure the debt, the government has to be able to issue new bonds, but the U.S. sanctions made this impossible. The Trump sanctions, both the August 2017 sanctions and now the new oil embargo, also make it pretty near impossible for the government to take measures that would end the hyperinflation, currently estimated at 1.6 million% annually. Damn. And I also want to mention the sanctions imposed by the Obama administration in March 2015 also had a serious impact. Um, let's see. It's sanctions against individuals. For example, the finance minister, the sanctions cause enormous problems as these officials are cut off from necessary transactions in most of the world financial system. Financial institutions increasingly turned away from Venezuela after March 2015 as they saw the risk of lending to a government that the U.S. was increasingly determined to topple, and as the economy worsened, looked more likely to succeed in doing so. So you guys can keep reading this article, guys. This is from The Nation, and I'm going to read the next article here. This is from 2018, exonerating the empire in Venezuela. This is going to talk about kind of the more of the same thing here. Let's see. The United States has for years undermined the Venezuelan economy with economic sanctions, but U.S. media coverage of Venezuela's financial crisis has gone out of its way to obscure this. The intent of the sanctions is clear: to inflict maximum pain on Venezuela so as to encourage the people of the country to overthrow the democratically elected government. SUNY professor Gabriel Hetland pointed out in 2016 that the Obama government prevented Venezuela from obtaining much needed foreign financing and investment. Such policies, he notes, have had a considerable and highly detrimental impact at a time when Venezuela is in desperate need of dollars, but is prevented from gaining access to them by Washington. And this is what we just talked about. In August 2017, 2 weeks before the Trump administration intensified the sanctions against Venezuela, UN Special Rapporteur Idris Jasseri noted that they would worsen the situation of the people of Venezuela and that, quote, sanctions are disruptive for any state and can have a particularly devastating impact on the citizens of developing countries such as Venezuela when they impair the economy. Let's see. This is interesting. When Venezuelan President Maduro in November 2017 proposed a meeting with creditors To discuss the restructuring of the country's public debt, the Trump admin warned U.S. bondholders that attending this meeting could put them in violation of U.S. economic sanctions against Venezuela, which can be punished with 30 years in jail and as much as $10 million in fines for businesses, man. That same month, the U.S. government added further sanctions that prevent Venezuela from doing what governments routinely do with much of their debt, which is roll it over by borrowing again when a bond matures. The sanctions also made it difficult, if not impossible, for Venezuela to undertake debt restructuring, a process wherein interest and principal payments are postponed, and creditors receive new bonds, which the sanctions explicitly prohibit. Let's see. According to economist Mark Weisbrot from Alternet 2017, the sanctions implemented that month appear designed to prevent an economic recovery and worsen the shortages, which include essential medicines and food. Okay? And guys, the New York Times is like Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, but in the last 3 years its economy has collapsed. They never mention sanctions. They never mention it's the U.S. fault. Okay? And that's what this article continues to talk about. Okay? It goes on a little longer. And I'm going to leave it there. Maybe there was one more quote I wanted to read. Do, 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 do. Mm. It sanctions not years of economic mismanagement. What's this gentleman's name? Rodriguez. Francisco Rodriguez. Mm. Oh, let's start with this one. Francisco Rodriguez from Foreign Policy. Sorry, there's a lot of good stuff in here. Quote, a problematic idea driving current U.S. policy is the belief that financial sanctions can hurt the Venezuelan government without causing serious harm to ordinary Venezuelans. That's impossible when 95% of Venezuela's export revenue comes from oil sold by the state-owned oil company. Cutting off the government's access to dollars will leave the economy without the hard currency needed to pay for imports of food and medicine, starving the Venezuelan economy of its foreign currency. Earnings risk turning the country's current humanitarian crisis into a full-blown humanitarian catastrophe. And let's see. So yeah, it talks about like how corporate news, the United States corporate news in the West, never mentions sanctions, guys. Um, yeah, U.S. sanctions, quote, falls most heavily on the poorest and most marginal sectors of society to coerce political and economic change and assist their democracy. So I'm going to leave that there, guys. Please read this article in its entirety, um, exonerating the empire in Venezuela. Um, and then this is from the World Socialist website. I'm going to read just a couple things. I want to talk about U.S. puppet Juan Guaido. This guy is a light skinned. He's there for the ultra rich man, CIA freaking puppet man. Let me see. Guaido, an operative of Voluntad Popular, a right wing party funded by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the National Endowment for Democracy, has bipartisan support from Democrats and the Republicans. He been presented in the media as some kind of freedom fighter and champion of democracy against Maduro, who is depicted as a dictator and force for evil. As Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, right-wing fucking nutcase, guys, warmonger piece of shit, stated in a speech last Saturday, warning other governments of the United Nations, either you stand with the forces of freedom or you're in league with Maduro and his mayhem. Boo hiss. This article also talks about Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the world, several billion barrels more than Saudi Arabia. This valuable prize is not simply a source of profit, but a critical geopolitical asset in the growing conflict between the U.S. and China, especially in light of growing fears that the oil markets could soon tighten. We talk about the sanctions, the oil embargo, and this is a good one. Washington's aims were nakedly expressed by National Security Advisor John Bolton, right-wing nutcase, warmonger piece of shit John Bolton, who told Fox News on Monday with the successful coup, it will make a big difference to the U.S. economically if we can have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. That would require the reversal of Venezuela's nationalization of its oil industry, which took place more than 4 decades ago, long before the advent of Maduro or his predecessor Hugo Chavez, and the transformation of the country into a semi-colony of U.S. imperialism and big oil. So all I'm saying, guys, decades ago, Venezuela nationalized a resource. They're saying, hey, man, this oil is ours. We'll sell it to you, but on our terms. We're not going to let you sell it to Chevron, Citgo, all the big oil companies, okay? This article also talks about the oil reserves, how it's extra heavy crude oil. It's very, very difficult to refine these oil reserves, guys. And, like, if you guys Google Matthew Heath, he was caught with explosives, C4, cash, passports, trying to blow up one of the main oil reserves in Venezuela, guys. You can Google Matthew Heath caught with explosives. So I just wanted to read a little bit of this one, guys. So it goes on quite a bit, but yeah. Um. So maybe there's some blame with Chavez and Maduro, but it's like, guys, what the U.S. and the West is doing with sanctions. So, all right. So two more articles on Venezuela, guys, and we're gonna play some Resident Evil Village. So, let's see here. This is from antiwar.com. Venezuela says CIA-linked mercenaries caught during false flag attack. Quote, this is a colonial operation of military aggression that seeks to turn the Caribbean into a space for lethal violence and U.S. imperial domination. The government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said Sunday that his country's security forces captured a group of mercenaries aligned with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, less than 2 weeks after President Donald Trump confirmed his authorization of covert CIA action against a South American nation. Venezuela, quote, reports that it has captured a mercenary group. Did I just read that shit? With direct info from the U.S. intelligence agency, CIA, being able to determine that a false flag attack is underway from waters bordering Trinidad and Tobago or from Trinidad or Venezuelan territory itself, the government said. Quote, this planned action perfectly evokes the provocation of the battleship Maine in the Gulf of Tonkin, which gave rise to the war against Spain to seize Cuba in 1898 and allowed the U.S. Congress to authorize involvement in an eternal war against Vietnam in 1964, from which they emerged defeated by the Vietnamese people after facing incalculable destruction and regrettable human loss. Guys, Gulf of Tonkin, they lied. They said, oh man, Vietnamese, there was an explosion, an oil tanker blew up, so we got to go into Vietnam. It was fucking one of the biggest lies to get into Vietnam, start the war. What the U.S. is doing to Venezuela is fucking bullshit, man. False flag attack, that's what it means. Um, they've caught some CIA guys trying to do covert ops, y'all. So if that false flag attack did happen, the U.S. corporate news would be like, hey, look, man, we got to go in Venezuela. We got to look what they're doing, you know what I mean? So, but this is crazy, man. Trinidad, just the U.S. puppet government or something. They're just they're in the Caribbean, guys, doing exercises. So very scary. What else did I want to read from this one? So, according to the Trump administration, at least 43 people have been killed in the U.S. boat strikes in the Southern Caribbean and Pacific Ocean since early last month. And the Trump administration, which had already deployed an armada of warships and thousands of troops to the Southern Caribbean, said Friday that it ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group off the coast of Venezuela, which possesses the world's largest oil reserves. The U.S. has been meddling in Venezuelan affairs since at least the late 19th century, going back to the 1895 border dispute between Venezuela and Britain. Since then, the U.S. has helped install and prop up brutal dictators and assisted in the subversion of democratic movements, including by training Venezuelan forces in torture and repression at the notorious U.S. Army School of the Americas. All right. Let me see. Yep, tens of thousands of Venezuelans have died as a result of U.S. economic sanctions. We just talked about that. I told you 40,000 in 1 year, y'all. So, last article, guys. We talked about the U.S. blowing up boats, right? They're saying, oh, it's drug lords, it's drug pushers. That's why we're blowing up. Zero evidence, y'all. Zero fucking evidence. Okay? This is from Covert Action Magazine, great website. Venezuela, it's titled Venezuela is Ready to Stand Firm Against U.S. Aggression. This is this article is by Richard S. Dunn, November 5th, 2025. Since September 2nd, 2025, the United States has bombed 13 boats, 2 within 24 hours, killing a total of 61 people in international waters, under the unproven charge that the boats were carrying drugs headed for the U.S. What is amazing in this unprecedented affair is that the expected public outcry has not been forthcoming. The corporate media reports it as if this is just another errant action by the Trump administration. What is clear is that the general public has been dumbed down by their own media, and there was an accepted indifference to atrocities carried out by their government to others. The bombings of these boats are not isolated cases. They are part and parcel of a wider U.S. foreign policy driven by the U.S. great power obsession. All right. So let's see. This is talking about the Monroe Doctrine. Wow, this is cool. There are 194 countries in the world, and the U.S., as of 2021, had a reported 1,221 military bases around the world. This is the face of an empire. This is the expansion and glorification of the Monroe Doctrine. This is the theory and practice of great power chauvinism at its highest. Look at that photo, man. Look at all that shit. Bet you we're not even using 80% of these right there, dude. Since the founding of the Republic, the U.S. has never supported a progressive movement or government anywhere in the world. It has unashamedly acted as the world police to monitor, disrupt, and punish all who do not ascribe or to yield the dictates of Washington. So, what else did I want to read from this one? That's kind of it, y'all. Let me see. Um, yeah, see, it is clear that the accusations of Venezuela's involvement in drug trafficking at a governmental level are false. Not one shred of evidence has been provided to support such allegations, y'all. According to the United Nations Human Rights Council, even if such accusations were proven, the use of lethal force in international waters without a proper legal basis constitutes a violation of international maritime law and amounts to extrajudicial executions. These attacks violated Venezuela's sovereignty in that the United States has fundamental international obligations not to interfere in another country's internal affairs or threaten it with military force. Oh gosh. So, oh yeah. And just keep your eye on for Nobel Prize winner, U.S. puppet Maria Corina Machado. Absolute nutcase, pro-Israel. She's like, yeah, we'll go to war. I mean, I don't care about killing innocent people as long as Maduro and I'm installed. And yeah, don't like her at all. So, dang, the U.S. has reinforced its military presence in the Caribbean, deploying guided missile destroyers, F-35 fighter jets, a nuclear-powered submarine, and approximately 6,500 troops, man. Damn. That's a lot, dude. That is a lot. Your tax dollars at work, y'all. Your tax dollars at work. Um, okay, so I also want to say this. President Maduro has wisely mobilized the entire country in defense of the country's national sovereignty in all attempts to crush the will of the Venezuelan people through provocation and possible invasion. And guys, if you Google Venezuela arming militias, um, he is arming the working class. He is giving arms like assault rifles, pistols to the working class people. So for y'all out there that are anti-Maduro, and he's a tyrant, why would he arm his own people? That's the easiest way to overthrow somebody is to arm them. So it's like that doesn't add up. So all right, that's about it for today on the news headlines, y'all. All right, we're gonna try and play some video games. We're gonna play some video games. Man, I just had a double shot espresso. Oh God, and just talking really fast, and now like I'm slowing down. It's like, oh shit. Whew. Dun, 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 dun. So, all I gotta say, guys, is I'm not saying Maduro is a saint, but you have to understand what the United States, the West, is doing. I would, in my opinion, the majority of Venezuelans' problems is the United States. Sanctions and embargoes, okay? And covert actions. So I just want to leave that there. That's my stance. All right. Oh gosh. But all right, I'm gonna end the stream here. I'm gonna get some water, regroup. I'm gonna stream some Resident Evil Village. Excuse me. Ooh. Oh god. There we go. All right. So